Hello and welcome to the dungeon. I'm your host Rob, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at wild shaping. Some of these forms will apply to any different druid. A lot of them though are going to be Circle the Moon specifically because the CRs are just going to be too high. Some of the lower level ones though I will mention because there's a lot of CR zeros and quarters and halves and 8 creatures that are really good for scouting. Things like a weasel that has like bonuses to their stealth score and things like that. And in the right setting, nobody's going to really have any reason to be suspicious of a weasel or a spider or anything else like that. That's just trying to scout and gain information. So a lot of those forms are really good. There's a bunch of underwater forms that are actually very useful, like the octopus, the giant octopus, reef sharks, and killer whales. A lot of those can be pretty nice, and I'll mention those as well. Obviously, they're for more, underwater type situations. So I expect that you'll just use some common sense on that kind of stuff. So I'm mostly just going to go through the ones in the books. Unfortunately, Mordenkainen's here gave us a grand total of 0 new beasts to choose from. So that was considerate of them. But there's a lot in the monster manual, especially in the appendix. There's tons of beasts you can choose from there. Your elemental forms, which will be available later on, will also be found in there. And I might as well take this opportunity to plug 2 books that I've reviewed before, the Tome of Beasts and the Creature Codex. Both of them have a lot of different beasts, so if you're using those in your campaign, that'll give the druid a lot more options. The Creature Codex, for example, has 21 new beasts listed in the appendix. Some of those are too high to be able to switch into, like the Oliphant, for example, is a CR8. Your druid's going to be limited to CR6 or lower because it's 1/3 of your druid level. So, if you're level 18 or higher, CR6. I think that just in general, I want to say that wild shaping is really cool and really fun. We've had a few wild shaped druids in my campaign so far, and they've been really, really effective, especially at low levels. Unfortunately, we've never seen one played at high levels yet because those campaigns ended or the players just changed classes or whatever. So we never got to see one that got to really high levels. I will say though that in my opinion, the beast shapes start to really fall behind, and I think it's one of the reasons why the elemental forms end up being a really strong choice at higher levels. Plus, the elemental forms have a ton of resistances. A lot of times they have immunities to certain types of elements, like if you're a fire elemental, you're immune to fire damage, of course. That kind of stuff is nice. But they also have they're usually immune to like paralysis and poison, a bunch of those type of conditions as well. So, all of them have resistance to non-magical weapon attacks, slashing, bludgeoning, piercing. So they're very, very resilient. They all have at least 100 hit points, which is more than most of the beasts have. So they really start to shine a lot more. And they have some nice other abilities. I'll talk about those more towards the end, but for now we'll start with the beasts. And I'm just going to go by CR level. So at level 0, we'll say between 0 and 1/2 as we'll start. There's a few real strong standouts in my opinion. You've got the cat, which has a climb and has stealth and has perception. Obviously, it's useless in combat. You're not going to use cat form in combat. The owl is pretty handy though. It even has a flyby ability, so it doesn't provoke opportunity attacks. Quite nice. And like I said before, the octopus is pretty decent. The wolf has pack tactics, which can be very handy. At CR18, the camel, surprisingly not absolutely terrible, especially if you're going to be crossing a desert. You can just be like, well, I'm just going to turn into a camel. So, it's not so bad. The black bear is going to give you multi-attack. It has, decent hit points. I think 19 hit points, if I recall correctly. That's a CR1/2. And like I mentioned before, the reef shark with its bite attack, not the worst choice. I mean, none of these creatures are particularly strong. Like I said, we're talking CR1/2 and lower. At level 2, though, your Circle of the Moon druid will have CR1 creatures available. It's important to note, though, that you still can't... Oh, I should have mentioned that with the octopus and the reef shark. You can't choose anything that has a swim speed, though, until you're level 4. So you're not going to be changing into those right away at level 2. Sorry. You need to be CR4 to have a swim speed, and or level 4 to have a swim speed, and you need to be level 8 to have a fly speed. So that's going to apply to your owl and whatnot as well. So, just in case you felt like your animal forms weren't keeping up, it's an added restriction to help them keep up even less. It's like taking the slowest runner in the pack and giving him a giant backpack full of rocks. Excellent. At CR1 though, you've got the dire wolf, which has pack tactics and keen smell. Pretty nice. Once again, we've got the giant octopus, but again, you can't do this until level 4 technically. It has underwater camouflage, underwater breathing, it can hold its breath, it has a grapple attack and an ink cloud. It's actually one of your strongest overall picks at this level, but again, you need to be underwater to use it, so, You've got the brown bear, which has decent damage and a multi-attack. Basically just a black bear, but better, and brown, of course. But my favorite pick of the bunch is probably the giant spider. It has a spider climb ability. It has a ranged web attack, which none of the other creatures so far have had, actually. I guess maybe the giant octopus with the ink cloud, I guess, technically. But, so you've got a bit of a crowd control effect there with the web attack. And you've got a poisonous bite attack, so, pretty good. At level 6, you can assume CR2 creatures. My favorites being the Constrictor Snake, which is pretty good. It has a Constrict attack, and it has blind sight. And surprisingly, from out of nowhere, the Giant Elk. This thing does a lot of damage. It has like a 4-8 hoof attack damage, and it has another attack on top of that. It has like a gore attack or something. It's surprisingly pretty good. The Rhino has a gore attack as well. That's a CR2. Level 8, you get the ability to finally use flying beast forms, which is nice because you get the giant vulture and the giant eagle, both available. And it's worth noting, these are both big enough that you can actually carry a party member on your back. And that actually starts to become a lot more useful. So, good to notice. Both of them can carry stuff, like I said. The giant vulture has pack tactics, again, very handy. But the eagle has more hit points and armor class. So it's kind of a, pick your poison type of thing. At level 9, only one level later, you're going to get your CR3 beasts. And this is going to give you the killer whale option, like I mentioned earlier. You're going to get the Ankylosaurus, which is okay. But by far, the standout choice for CR3 beasts at level 9 is the giant scorpion. It has a grapple attack with its pincers, it has a poison stinger attack, and it has blind sight. It's hands down the best if you're going to be in combat with this thing at that level range. At level 12, you're going to get your CR4 beasts. Unfortunately, there's only one in the monster manual, and that is the elephant. It has good hit points though, and it has a trample charge attack, which can give it multi-attack if it manages to knock something prone. Not bad. Volos, though, does give us the Stegosaurus as well, so at least we have more than one option. That's kind of nice. At level 15, you're going to get your CR5 creatures. Again, there's only one, and it's the giant crocodile. It's worth pointing out, though, the giant crocodile is pretty good, but by level 15, I kind of feel like 8th level spells might be better than being a giant crocodile, unfortunately. Don't downvote my video just because of that comment, because you all know it's true, sadly enough. But the giant crocodile has a restraint attack, it has a tail whip that can knock you prone, and it has 85 hit points, meaning it is pretty robust. And if you're looking just to have that hit point buffer, and then maybe fall back on spell casting after you've lost your animal form, then there's no reason you can't be a giant crocodile and still cast 8th level spells in the same combat if it goes long enough. So there is that. At level 18, you're going to get your CR6 creatures, which is a lie, because there's only one, and it's the mammoth. The mammoth, though, is quite durable, and, it's pretty good overall. I mean, I don't want to trash it, but again, by now you're an 18th level character, you've got full spell casting progression. I think 9th level spells are probably going to be more powerful than a mammoth. So, your elemental forms, which you're going to get available at level 10, I believe, if you're a Circle of the Moon Druid. Obviously, you get Fire Elemental, your Water Elemental, your Air Elemental, and your Earth Elemental. And as I mentioned, they're all pretty robust thanks to their resistances and immunity types. Fire is going to be probably your strongest choice offensively. It does pretty decent damage. It has a touch attack that can set things on fire if you enter their space, and that's actually a pretty useful ability. I mean, you can literally just move into something's space and set it ablaze, and then it's just taking fire damage. It's pretty good. Water has an interesting ability with it. It has a restraining drowned attack. It basically works like a grapple. Essentially, it's a strength check to try to escape, and it can reduce something's hit points to 0. So it doesn't actually do damage. If they run out of breath, it just reduces their health to 0. So very nice against certain creatures, especially like casters or dex type of guys who don't have a lot of strength. It can be really, really effective, and because of the fact that it's just a hit point reduction to 0, it's not, trying to wear the guy down. It can actually be really good, and the restraint attack can be pretty nice for dealing with enemy casters and things as well. So it's pretty good overall. Air Elemental has a flying ability, of course. It also has a whirlwind where it can try to knock things back. So if you're fighting by a cliff or some other sort of hazard, then Air Elemental becomes a really good choice, because you can try to, use terrain effects to your advantage. You can even try to grapple somebody, fly up with them and drop them, of course. So I mean, Air Elemental's pretty good overall too. Earth Elemental has the highest hit points and armor class, and has a burrow ability. If you're just looking for something to absorb a lot of damage, obviously this is going to be your best choice. But I do feel like the other ones, I mean, the burrow ability might be situationally useful, especially in dungeons. You might need to, get past a door and it's magically locked, and you're like, well, what if I just burrow through the floor and come up on the other side? That might be a great way to get by something like that. But in combat, unless you're just looking for a beefy tank, I feel like all the other ones probably have more powerful abilities that they're using. I do want to talk about the idea of using your character, though, as a mount for other PCs, because you can act as an independent mount, allowing you to take your turn on your initiative and them to take their turn on their initiative. And there's some pretty nice combinations you can pull off. Like if you've got a fighter in your party and he's just normally going to be limited to a war horse, for example, you being a giant vulture could be a lot more advantageous than that. And the fact that you can choose it, who would want to ride an elephant in a battle? Those things are fearsome. Just ask Alexander the Great. Horrible to go up against. So I mean, there's a lot of potential for stuff like that. There's even more potential if you can convince that ally of yours to take the mounted combatant feat. What I've never recommended before, maybe I recommended it in one video, maybe in the champion video, because it's a nice source of on-demand advantage if you're going to be mounted a lot. But the fact that you can just become the mount gives your ally a lot of opportunities to just make attacks with advantage, and that can be a big game changer. So I do think there's a lot of potential there for some teamwork, especially if that ally can also be convinced to take, say, the Sentinel feat. And if you use something with flying, then there's a lot of shenanigans that you can get up to with this kind of combination. But just being a mount in general can be actually really useful, although it can be maybe a little undignified. But maybe it's just a lot of fun. Who knows? I'm not a mount. I wouldn't know. If I could turn into an elk, carry people, I might really enjoy it. But I can't, so I won't know. But you might, because you could be a druid and you could find out for yourself. And just the fact that some of these animals have really good movement speeds can help you to really overcome a lot. So on race choices, obviously anything that's going to give you wisdom is going to be important. Even if you're planning on being in animal form a lot, you're still going to want some wisdom to be able to cast your spells and whatnot. You're just going to. You might want hit points though, so Constitution could be really good, because if you're going to be changing animal forms and using them in combat a lot, and then you lose those forms, then you might want to have a large hit point pool to kind of absorb the damage before you can resume another one, right? If you're planning on casting a lot from the front line, then Warcaster or Resilient Con both become really good choices. I kind of favor Resilient Con for once, just because, like I mentioned before, you might just want more hit points and feel like I don't really need to maintain a lot of spells. I just want to be in animal form, and if I get knocked out, I just want to turn into an animal form again without worrying about getting knocked unconscious or something. So I think that there's a lot of potential for that. Like I said, the amount of combatant feat on an ally is excellent, I think. And, you know, always a good choice there. Things like Lucky, of course, and Alert, always strong. I really like Lucky on a character like this because you don't have good armor classes in a lot of these beast forms, and you know, if you're getting hit a lot and then the DM rolls a crit against you, it's going to be really fast and you're just going to be out of animal form. So the fact that the DM could like roll a crit and you can just force him to re-roll that attack, that can help to preserve your animal form a lot longer. I've seen some people recommend the defensive duelist feat. Your claws do count as weapons, technically. That's what it says in the monster manual anyways on page 10. I would check with my DM first, because some dungeon masters might be like, that's clearly not the intention of the feat. But, you know, if your DM's cool, then he might allow it, especially, you know, if you bribe him with food or something before the game, go for it. So I do think that that has potential, but like I said, check with your DM first, because you don't want to take the feat and then find out that he's like, well, technically, I don't think you're defensively dueling because you're a bear, you know, whatever. As far as races, obviously anything that gives you wisdom is going to be good. I kind of like the Wood Elf, pretty standard choice, but I also like something like, say, a Lightfoot Halfling, or actually really any of the Halflings, but especially the Lightfoot Halfling, because a lot of your animal forms have really good movement speed, which helps to compensate for one of the biggest drawbacks of being a Halfling, which is your limited movement speed. So if you're going to be in beast form a lot, you really don't have to worry about the movement as much, because you can use its movement instead. And if you're going to be a giant eagle and you're flying around a lot, then, you know, why not? And of course the Halfling Luck racial trait is excellent. So I think that Halfling is actually a very solid choice for shape-shifting druid, because like I said, it overcomes one of your biggest drawbacks, and then the racial Halfling Luck is awesome. So those are my thoughts on it. I don't want to go into a lot more detail than that. I think I basically covered most of the different animal forms that are worth using. Like I said, there are a lot of other ones out there. If you just want to spend a lot of time flipping through the various monster manuals, then you'll be able to find some stuff, obviously. But those are the ones that kind of do what I want them to do. And so, yeah, those are my main thoughts on wild shaping. So feel free to like the video, hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, all that kind of stuff. But most importantly, please leave your comments in the comment section. I promise to read every single comment, because the channel's still quite small, so it's easy for me to do that. And honestly, that's one of my favorite things. I love hearing other people's ideas for builds, like, hey, I'm doing this and this, what do you think? Or I tried this and this and it was awesome, you know? There's so many different ways to play this game, and there's so many different combinations that it's really nice to just hear other people's perspectives. So, like I said, leave your comments. I love reading that kind of stuff, and I'll see you next time in the dungeon.